Hi, I'm Sky, and this video is all about trying to figure out the artist's life when you feel totally clueless. This is my journey and my experience, but I hope that you can relate to it and know that you're not alone in trying to figure out how to keep on creating, even when your artist journey isn't straightforward or clear whatsoever. I grew up as a pretty artistic kid. I loved all things Disney, animation, freedom, and fun. Basically, I had a big imagination, and I loved to play pretend, draw, and paint pretty much every day. As I got older, I clung to my childhood inspirations all the more. Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all things Disney, and of course, Twilight were particularly stimulating for my imaginative mind. And I didn't care how old I ever became in life. I swore to always be obsessed with these stories that seemed to just make me feel so alive for some reason. I always wanted to create things that would recreate the feeling that my favorite things gave me. But as any young artist knows, even though the feeling to create was there, I never really felt like I was super talented or had the skills to truly create something so amazing. And I didn't have the skills, but I took all the art classes I could in high school and drew anyways, and played with Photoshop, of course. I remember expressing my desire to study art in college to my high school art teacher, and he was so supportive and told me to go for it. He really made me believe I could do it. So after graduating high school, I decided to go for it and sign up to major in art. The problem was I really had no idea what I wanted to do with this degree, and when it came to a profession, I was just clueless. I knew I wanted to get better so I could create the ideas that I had. If I could learn to draw well enough, that I would totally do this for a career. And that idea really excited me. So I tentatively set off in that direction. Again, not really knowing anything about the movie industry or even really much about being a talented artist. But I went for it anyway. And I took all the usual classes one needs to take to get somewhat of a handle on how to draw. I took all the figure drawing classes, which then turned into figure painting classes, and I discovered I enjoyed painting quite a bit more than just drawing. So I worked my hardest at it, and I knew I still wasn't fantastic, but I loved it, and I was learning and getting better slowly. Eventually, I met my husband, who is another artist at my school who wanted to work in the animation industry, and that was just so thrilling to me to meet someone who had such a passion for art and who created constantly. I loved that his dreams were so big and that he was going for them without reservations. It was pretty much love at first sight for those reasons and a million others, so of course I married him. After getting married, my responsibilities quadrupled. I was working like 3 jobs, but also trying to take my art even more seriously, knowing that I needed to figure out how to make money with it. So during this time, I fell in love with watercolor and started a small shop where I sold prints and Christmas cards, and it actually helped pay the bills for a while. I kept exploring and tried my hand at illustrating as well, and then I discovered landscape painting. And oh man, I fell in love. I personally think that it was during landscape painting that I started to see real improvement in myself as an artist. I just really loved everything about the process, like packing up an easel and paints and driving out to a pretty location and just painting for hours and hours. It was just so fulfilling. I did master copies and originals, and I took every landscape class that I was able to take during school. I started to drive out to local farms and paint the animals as well, which was so much fun for me. I considered that maybe I should try to be a landscape gallery artist. All my teachers talked about how hard and competitive that was, and it honestly scared me out of it. I was so used to getting critiqued by teachers and students in class that I felt a little beat down and wasn't sure I could emotionally handle getting told no by the galleries. Looking back now, I can see that the fears and pressures of needing to really be someone in the art world had slowly stifled a lot of my creativity, enjoyment, and even faith in the art process during college, as it does with so many artists during this time of learning and growth. Graduation finally came, and I was so excited. College was so hard, and between all my jobs and classes and late night painting, I was only getting about 3 hours of sleep each night, and so I was just completely exhausted. I was so happy to be done, but the problem was that I still had no idea what kind of artist I was going to be. Since my husband had already begun working in the animation industry, I considered trying to join him for a while, thinking that maybe I could be a background designer and painter because I loved landscapes so much. So I studied that for a few months and tried doing a bunch of master's studies before deciding I didn't think it was for me. I was running into the struggle of pressure again, and the heat of the competition in this industry is just so high, and I was just so tired. I wanted my art to make me feel alive, but instead it was still just exhausting me. So I lived in my sketchbook for a long time. I just painted whatever I felt like. I loved painting whatever I wanted, but each time I did, I still felt like such a failure. With every little entry in my sketchbook, I thrived during the creation process, but afterward the voice in my head was constantly asking, now what is the point of this? What are you supposed to do with this sketch? It's not like it has any deep important meaning. It's not even all that good. Aren't you supposed to be making money? Aren't you supposed to be going out to be somebody? And that, my friends, was so stifling. Since I didn't know what I was doing, I decided to just work the best paying job I could find in the meantime. So my husband was out working as a character designer in animation, and I began working as a paralegal. Not an art job, but that's okay, and it paid the bills, and you know what? I actually really enjoyed it. I kept brainstorming what to do with my art degree in the meantime and considered becoming an art recruiter or even an art teacher, but again, nothing felt quite right. Then Corona hit, and for a while, the fear and anxiety of that pandemic really stopped me from giving any thought whatsoever to art and creativity. The negative voices in my head were louder than ever during this time, and all I cared about was the health and safety of my family, the bond of my community, and continuing to try and make enough money during a time of intense global financial instability. I deleted all my social media and I just tried to tune out. Following that scary period came a happy miracle. We found out we were pregnant, and creation took on a whole new meaning in my life as I focused on growing a tiny baby human while working full time. And then she was born, and oh man, it was what everyone tells you. It's beautiful, wonderful, the best thing to ever happen to you. But it also makes you feel a little like this gif of Leslie Knope from Parks and Rec. Everything does indeed hurt and you feel like you're dying. And for me, that lasted a long, long time in the form of postpartum depression. And that physical, mental, and emotional time of hurting led me back into creating. I tried to shut out the voices telling me that it wasn't important to create, and somehow I found the time, often at 1 a.m, to paint. Because if I didn't, I felt like the darkness was even darker. So I painted whatever I could. I did a lot of religious art at that time that comforted me. I painted on cookies and cakes. I found myself clawing back to my childhood inspirations and doing a lot of fan art. And I know what you're thinking.
That doesn't make sense.
And you're right. None of the art I was making was cohesive. And although I loved making it, as a body of work, most of it didn't make any sense to me. And the lack of cohesiveness made me once again terrified. And why this constant terror surrounding my art? Well, because we live in a big, beautiful world. A world that is full of people. And those people have a lot of opinions, especially when it comes to art. And especially when it comes to someone saying they want to be an artist. Opinions like, what are you doing with your degree? How do you make any money with that? It doesn't seem like you know what you want. What is the purpose of your art? You're not a serious artist, and you're not really all that good, are you? All of these thoughts and opinions from people start to echo in your brain, and then your brain and your creativity do a little dance that goes something like this.
You are out of your damn little pea-sized mind. What is wrong with you? Do you have any sense at all?
Okay.
Do you have any idea how to run an office?
Yes.
Every day you do something stupider than you did the day before. And I think there's no possible way he can top that.
Okay.
But what do? You find a way, damn it, to top it. You are a professional idiot.
Hey, stop it!
Which then makes your creativity recede back into the recesses of your consciousness. And externally, you might look like this, but internally, it makes you feel a lot like this. Why? Because you find yourself constantly ignoring and pushing back the ideas that come to you. And ideas are precious and fleeting, like the wind rustling through the trees, water bubbling down a brook, or moonlight moving across the sky. They're beautiful and meaningful. And when you're a creative person who's letting fears and pressures keep you from creating or putting yourself out there, it actually hurts watching those ideas drift by unfulfilled. I feel like after all these years of being confused about who I am as an artist, I've decided that I'm just done with that. I don't want to see ideas drift by me anymore. I don't want to let life and adult responsibilities keep me from doing the things that make me feel alive. I want to paint and write and maybe sculpt or crochet. I just want to make things. And I've decided that it's okay if my art doesn't give me Mr. Gatsby vibes, because it gives me Snow White dancing with the 7 dwarves vibes. It makes me feel free. And I feel like I'm not the only one who feels this way. I think that especially women often feel a loss of self as we age into adulthood, and it can be easy to let our creativity get stifled. So I'm just here to say that if you've been bogged down with life circumstances, family obligations, people's opinions, an unclear vision, the state of the world, finances, lack of confidence, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, or trying to live up to something but you're not quite sure what, but you still love to create, then guess what? You're still an artist. And it doesn't matter if you don't make any money at it, or if people talk behind your back. It doesn't matter if you spend your days being a parent or a caretaker, or if you do a different job during the day. You're an artist. So yeah, maybe your artist life looks different than you imagined it. Maybe the only time during the day you have to create is early in the morning or late at night. The point is that you're allowing yourself to grab onto those ideas that come to you, and you're creating. I love this quote by Elizabeth Gilbert, which reads, "Creativity is sacred and it is not sacred. What we make matters enormously and it doesn't matter at all. We toil alone and are accompanied by spirits. We are terrified and we are brave. Art is a crushing chore and a wonderful privilege. Only when we are at our most playful can divinity finally get serious with us. Make space for all these paradoxes to be equally inside your soul. And I promise you, you can make anything. So please calm down and get back to work, okay? The treasures that are hidden inside you are hoping you will say yes." I love that. And that's what I'm going to do. I want to honor the child version of me that simply loved to create things and dream. I'd like to return back to this frame of mind and be playful and lighthearted and excited about my art, because even though I might not be in the position to go out and be Mr. Gatsby, I can always be Snow White dancing in the kitchen with the 7 dwarves. And frankly, that's what makes me happy. So I hope you'll join me in the dance. Thank you so much for watching this video and checking out my channel. I'll be continuing to make many more videos on topics just like this, and I hope you'll subscribe and join me in exploring the wide universe of things that enchant us and make us feel alive. Love you. Bye.